A series of explosions rocked Kharkov, thousands of Ukrainians evacuated in panic. Ukraine prepares 10 brigades to prevent a large-scale attack by the Russian army. The United Nations General Assembly passed a resolution supporting Palestine's membership in the organization. The rift between U.S. and Israeli leaders reached its peak after Mr. Biden's ultimatum. A series of explosions rocked Kharkov, thousands of Ukrainians evacuated in panic. Several large explosions shook the city of Kharkiv on the night of May 10 and early morning of May 11, according to Pravda. Previously, the Ukrainian army warned people about the missile threat in the Kharkiv region at 02. Afterwards, the Ukrainian Air Force announced that Russian tactical aircraft could launch guided bombs into Kharkiv. An explosion was heard in Kharkiv at 2:49. Olesiny Hubov, Kharkiv region military official, confirmed that Russian forces were attacking and asked people to find shelter. The Russian military has not commented on this information. Moscow continuously affirms that Russia only attacks military targets, not civilian targets. On May 11, Pravda news agency reported that nearly 2,000 people were evacuated from Kharkiv areas, including 1,048 people from Chuid district, 440 people from Kharkiv district, 12 people from Bohodukov district and 275 people from other areas. Other settlement. Pravda sources revealed that Russian forces resumed offensive operations near the village of Hlybok in Kharkiv on the morning of May 11 and are expected to increase their firepower. This morning, the enemy continued offensive operations in some areas near Hlybok. They fired artillery shells towards Staritsia. It is expected that firepower will continue to escalate in other areas, especially near Streleka Hlybok. The source added that the Russian side has not yet conducted any offensive operations on the Vovchansk front. Previously, there were reports that the Russian military had increased operations in Kharkiv. During a meeting with Slovak President Zuzana Chaputova, President Zelensky confirmed that the Russian army had launched a new wave of attacks in Kharkiv. The Ukrainian Ministry of Defense announced that reserve forces had been mobilized to the northern Kharkiv area to cope. Pravda sources said the Russian army took control of 4 villages in Kharkiv. Ukraine prepares 10 brigades to prevent a large-scale attack by the Russian army. To counter the Russian attack, the Ukrainian armed forces need to add a large number of reserve troops. Ukraine is preparing for a large-scale attack from the Russian army. Creating new brigades in the armed forces of Ukraine is urgent, said the above statement issued by the commander of the ground forces, General Alexander Pavliuk. Specifically, Kyiv is preparing 10 new brigades tasked with preventing a large-scale attack by the Russian army. According to Mr. Pavliuk, the Russian army will definitely attack in late May or early June. Several new units, namely half of them, will take on the task of defending Kyiv, because the command of the Russian army, according to comments, will not abandon its plans to capture the capital of Ukraine. In an interview with the British publication The Economist, General Pavliuk affirmed that although the Ukrainian armed forces have personnel problems, all difficulties will be solved thanks to weapons from Western allies. According to Mr. Pavliuk, Kyiv will still have adequate human resources, but if equipment is in short supply like in the past, all calculations will collapse. The United Nations General Assembly passed a resolution supporting Palestine's membership in the organization. On the evening of May 10, local time, at the United Nations headquarters in New York, USA, the United Nations General Assembly, UN General Assembly, passed a resolution calling on the UN Security Council to consider support Palestine to become an official member of the largest multilateral organization on the planet. According to a Vietnam news agency correspondent in New York, at a special emergency meeting to discuss the Gaza situation and Palestine's membership, the General Assembly discussed and voted to pass the above resolution with an overwhelming majority of 143 votes for, 9 votes against and 25 abstentions. The resolution declares that the State of Palestine is eligible to become an official member of the UN, and recommends that the Security Council consider supporting this process. Although only symbolic, the General Assembly's adoption of the resolution has great significance for the status and activities of Palestine, according to which Palestine will enjoy more powers from the upcoming plenary session of the General Assembly, September 2024, as if making a statement on behalf of a group, submit proposals and amendments or propose contents on the provisional agenda at regular or extraordinary meetings. However, because it is not yet a full member, Palestine will still not have the right to run for election to UN agencies such as the Security Council or the Economic and Social Council, ECOSOC. In 1974, the UN General Assembly passed Resolution 3237 recognizing the Palestine Liberation Organization, PLO, as an observer member. In November 2012, the General Assembly continued to pass a resolution granting the State of Palestine observer member status at the UN. The UN Charter stipulates that the admission of new members is decided by the General Assembly based on a proposed resolution of the Security Council, where members applying to join need to receive 9/15 votes in favor of and no members. Any permanent veto. Palestine then needs to receive the support of 2/3 of the UN General Assembly members to become an official member. The rift between U.S. and Israeli leaders reached its peak after Mr. Biden's ultimatum. The relationship between U.S. President Joe Biden and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has long had many problems and is increasingly tense because of the situation in the Gaza Strip. Peak tension. On May 10, information from the AP said that the relationship between U.S. President Joe Biden and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is at the most difficult stage ever. The peak of the rift was when Mr. Biden delayed the transfer of heavy bombs to Israel and issued an ultimatum warning to stop weapons aid if Israel conducted a large-scale military operation in Rafah, where more than 1.5 million Palestinians flee because of the conflict in Gaza. In response, Mr. Netanyahu announced that he would continue to carry out military operations even without outside help. "We are willing to do everything on our own, without outside help. Even if necessary, we will fight to the end," Mr. Netanyahu declared. According to AP, Mr. Biden is always confident that he can control his ally Israel with carrots, meaning supportive policies, instead of sticks, referring to strong measures and sanctions. However, escalating tensions over the past 7 months show that the best time for the U.S. to apply the above approach has passed. In order to balance the tense situation in the Middle East and internal political issues, Mr. Netanyahu increasingly showed his opposition to the U.S., forcing the U.S. president to improvise more decisively. "I want to make it clear that if Israel intends to attack Rafah, I will not provide the weapons that Israel has so far used for this campaign. That will help solve the above problem," Mr. Biden answered in an interview with the press on May 8, showing the increasingly different views between the two leaders. On May 9, White House spokesman John Kirby refused to say whether Mr. Biden would inform Mr. Netanyahu of the decision to suspend the shipment of 3,500 bombs. However, Mr. John Kirby said the U.S. president had directly and frankly expressed his concerns to Netanyahu about the Gaza issue. On May 10, the spokesperson representing the U.S. government continued to affirm that Israel's attack on Rafah would not be able to destroy Hamas, and called on Israel to find alternative solutions. However, aides to the U.S. president have given reasons including political imperatives, engagement and Mr. Biden's attitude and belief in Israel, thereby affirming that he does not want to let the relationship go. U.S.-Israel rift.